Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our session on your guide to college admissions. My name is Lindsay, and I'm joined with our host for the evening, Princeton Review resident expert, Emily. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know everyone's lines are on mute. So if you have any questions tonight, go ahead and put those in the questions panel in your GoToWebinar menu. And we'll save some time for questions at the end, but feel free to put those questions in throughout the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and available for viewing along with all of our other webinars by visiting princetonreview.com/webinars. And with that, I'll pass it along to Emily.
Awesome, thanks, Lindsay. Well, my name is Emily. I'm based in Austin, Texas, as you can see. I'm our Director of College Admissions Counseling Operations with the Princeton Review. So I manage our college coaching team and college counseling team that run our college admissions counseling program. So if that's something that you're interested in, we would love to work with you guys. Definitely let Lindsay know in the questions box that that'd be something that you're interested in. What I want to do tonight is talk a little bit about upcoming seniors. I know you guys have a lot of nerves going on right now. There's a lot to tackle this summer. I'm sure your parents are feeling that with you as well. So I kind of want to run through what are the things you should be focusing on this summer to really prepare for your applications in the fall. So we'll go ahead and get started with a question. I kind of just want to see where everyone's at right now. So what are you most excited about this summer?
Yeah, so if folks could go ahead and put in the questions box what you're most excited about this summer. You don't have a poll for this one, but go ahead and list something you're excited about for the summer in your questions box.
Perfect. So some examples that you might think about listing are participating in like an activity if you're going to do a summer program at a college or locally in your community, part-time job, either to earn some money or could just because you like your job, maybe an internship, formal or informal, volunteer experiences, travel, preparing for your college applications and essays. I don't know how many of those we'll get. Maybe just sitting around and relaxing. So we just kind of want to see where everyone's at this summer.
Yeah, we got a lot of responses about rest and relaxing. Someone says they're looking forward to summer school. I got some responses about college tours. So runs the gamut.
Awesome, perfect. Well, I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit about everything on that list. So we'll move right into tonight's agenda. So we're going to talk a little bit about getting organized to begin with. So taking shape of what your summer should look like, making lists and applications. So that'll kind of center around the nitty gritty of college lists, applications, and essays, and rounding out the evening with a couple smaller pieces such as testing and finances, just some things to think about before you head into application season in the fall. So we'll start with making the most of your summer, which directly relates to the question I just asked. So rest and relaxation is important, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about that later on. But another very key piece of the summer is do not slack. So I know it's really tempting going into senior year to just take this summer and say, you know what, I've done enough over the past 3 years. Like, I don't want to do it this summer. And that is not what colleges want to see. So they want to see you continuing to be involved, pursuing interests outside of what you're just doing at school. So that could take a variety of shapes and forms. And some of you guys already might be signed up for programs this summer or classes this summer, like you mentioned. There's a couple things that I'm going to mention. Pursuing academic interests. So doing something such as taking a class at a community college or a local college to pursue an interest that maybe your school doesn't have a ton of opportunities in. So say maybe you want to be a psychology major, but your high school doesn't offer a AP Psych course or anything like that. You might be able to take that at a local college to learn a little bit more about the subject. There's also quite a few places online where you can take some free courses, so that might be something to look at as well. Something to just push yourself right past what your high school is requiring of you to learn a little bit more about your field of interest. Something else you can do is get an informal internship or job, kind of like job shadowing experience. It's really hard to get a formal internship as a high school student. There's a lot of parameters around age and different things like that. They are few and far between. So, don't feel pressured to get a formal internship, but if you're interested in a specific area, call local businesses, connect with local leaders in the community that have that specific career field. Even if it just looks like, meeting up with somebody a couple times for coffee and kind of picking their brain and talking to them about their specific career field, what day-to-day operations look like, what you could expect in that field. It's a good way for you to get some more hands-on experience and knowledge about what you might be pursuing in the future. Second thing is to get involved in your community. So some of you might already be doing this very well, and some of you might be thinking in your mind right now, yeah, I should probably get on that. No matter where you're at, it's important to stay involved. So if you're already involved in your community and you've been volunteering or a part of an organization, keep up at it this summer. You've got a lot of extra time this summer, depending on what you're doing, but you should have more time than during the school year to kind of dig your heels in a little bit more into whatever cause or organization you're really passionate about. So try to step up your game there a little bit. If you're staying around home for the summer, get involved in your community. If you haven't started that already, this is a great time to start. So what I would mention, or what I would recommend, is thinking about what are the causes or issues in your community that you feel passionate about. So what questions or problems would you like to solve? And then looking for organizations or nonprofits that are based around that you can start to get involved in. You might have to call more than one place. Some of them do have age requirements. So be persistent. It's something that's really important. Colleges like to see that they're admitting candidates that are going to be good campus citizens when they get to their college as well. The third thing that I'll recommend is starting an independent project. So if taking a class doesn't really sound interesting to you, you're not really sure how to kind of pursue your interest past what you've already done so far, think about creating your own opportunity. So this could look like doing some research. If you're interested in computer science, maybe learning a new programming language or programming something new. It could look like raising money for a cause that you love, maybe starting a small business. So there's a lot of ways for you to kind of push past what's being offered and really create an opportunity for yourself to kind of pursue an area of interest this summer. All right, we are going to move on to getting organized. So I talked a lot about this in the intro slide. I know that it has been a busy past couple months for you juniors. Believe me, I've been there. I'm working with juniors. Right now, I've been working with them for the past 5 years. It gets crazy this time of year. There's lots of testing, end of school projects. If you've got senior friends, they're about to graduate. So I know you guys are just ready to hit the couch and not move for a little bit, and I get that. But it's important that you get yourself organized before the summer so that you really can relax, but also maximize the time that you have this summer. So what I say is it typically isn't going to slow down until after application season, unfortunately. One thing that I would recommend is actually building out a spreadsheet or a document with key info for each school that you're planning on applying to. This will help keep you organized so that you can kind of understand what colleges are looking for. So things that I would look for in this are deadlines. So taking note of the admissions and financial aid or merit aid deadlines for each school. So if you've got a list of colleges, you should kind of start searching for each of these things on their admissions websites. A lot of it can be found online pretty easily. Testing requirements, we'll get a little bit more into subject tests later on, but that's something important to look for. Does the school require them or recommend them? Does the school super score? Does the school even require testing? It's becoming a trend more and more for some schools not to actually require testing. A lot of schools are going test optional. So if test scores aren't representative of your whole profile and that school doesn't require them, that might be something that you want to consider. So just knowing what your options are is important. Letters of recommendation. Not every school is actually going to require letters of recommendation. So it's important to follow instructions. You don't just want to blanket send out your letters of recommendation to every school on your list. You want to make sure you're researching first to see if they require them. And then second, see which letters they require. So some schools might say we need a counselor and 2 teachers. Some might say a counselor and 1 teacher. Just kind of make note of which schools are requesting what. If you haven't already requested letters of recommendation, I do recommend reaching out to 2 core teachers that you've had junior or will have senior year. And this is also something, we give a lot of this advice in our college admissions program. So if you're needing a little bit more advice on this, that's definitely something that we can help you out with if you decide to enroll in a program. The next piece would be required essay prompts. So a lot of colleges require essays, and it's important to know exactly which ones you'll be, attacking in the fall. So not every school releases their essays yet. A lot of schools will wait and hold on to their what we call supplemental essays, their school-specific essays, until early fall, late summer. So they'll usually release them after August 1. Right now, they're kind of going through the process of deciding if they're going to use the same essays or not. However, there are some essays you can get started on. A big one is your personal narrative, which I'll talk about in a second as well. But organizing what those prompts are, if you don't know one yet, leave it blank, come back to it later after August 1st when you know that they've been released. Any additional documents or any additional requirements? So if you're applying to a program that requires a portfolio or audition, if you're planning on majoring in studio art or theater, something similar, you want to make sure that you're looking at those requirements separately. A lot of times those deadlines might be earlier. You might have to tape an audition or fly out for an audition for the school. So you want to make sure that you're making those plans very far in advance. All right, another poll. So how can you demonstrate interest to a college? Just curious what you guys think. What are the best ways to demonstrate interest to a college that you're interested in?
It looks like it's split pretty much 20% talk with an admissions officer, 20% or now 17% visit the campus, and about half of the folks say all the above.
Awesome, perfect. The half of you that said all of the above are exactly right. The other ones, you're still right, but you can do the other items as well. So there's lots of ways to demonstrate interest to a college, and what I want to get at with this poll is that it's a great opportunity to visit campuses, which is what I'm about to talk about, but it's not the only way to demonstrate interest. So it can be really hard to visit every school on your list. That's not common for most students, so don't feel like you need to plan a trip around the country for a month this summer to visit all your schools. There's lots of great ways to demonstrate interest. So you can actually sign up for their online emails. So the school will email you news and updates. As long as you're opening up those emails, kind of interacting with that correspondence, that can be a way to demonstrate interest. And that also goes with attending webinars that the school's hosting, different things like that online. Talking with an admissions officer from that school at a college fair or a local event. So some high schools or local areas will do college fairs. NACAC, which is the National Association for College Admissions Counselors, they also host quite a few large college fairs around the country in major cities throughout the year, so might be something to look into. Visiting the campus obviously is a great idea, and then completing an interview. So that can also be done while you're visiting the campus. So those are all great ways to tell the school that you're interested in them and that you really like them. So. All right, so learning a little bit about the colleges on your list. So now that we've kind of moved into college visits and college lists, a lot of you might already have a list of colleges that you're planning on applying to. However, some of you might be starting from ground zero and saying, I don't know where I'm going to apply. That's okay. Either way, it's important to research the schools that you're interested in. If your list at this point is 25 colleges, it's time to start narrowing it down. You don't want to apply to that many schools. This is one of the most common questions I get working with students is from students and parents is, what's the right amount of schools to apply to? And I'll tell you right now, there's no perfect amount. It's going to depend student to student. I recommend always that students apply to a balanced list of colleges. I would say my average is probably around 10 or so, but it really is unique to each student. So it's going to be unique to your specific situation. You want to be stretching yourself and applying to some schools that are, are right on that reach cusp. And then you also want to make sure that you're applying to some target and likely schools as well, schools where you fall kind of within that middle range of test scores and GPAs and schools that you've got a really solid chance of getting into. So it's important to balance out your list when you're applying. When you're looking at your list and trying to balance it, I know that can be hard sometimes, and that is something that we do in our college admissions program. So if you're interested in that, definitely let us know. But what I would say is colleges really look at things holistically, most of them. So it's not going to be based just on the numbers. However, sometimes that can be a good place to start. So you can just kind of see entry level where you might fall. There's going to be a lot of other factors involved, so don't take that as the holy grail. If you're in this SAT score, you're definitely getting in or you're definitely not getting in sort of thing. But looking at the average test scores, the average GPAs for schools can kind of tell you where you're going to fall academically with the students that have been accepted in recent years. Visiting schools near or far. So I don't know if too many of you said you were traveling this summer or not, but if you are and you're interested in the area you're traveling to, go see some schools nearby. I never recommend planning more than 2 visits in a day unless you are really gung-ho and like ready to wake up at 7 a.m. and not go to bed till 10. But 2 in a day is usually okay, especially if they're near each other. Visit some different types of schools. If you're going to an area and there's a school nearby that you're not quite sure, but it would be easy to pop into and visit, go ahead and schedule a campus visit. Go to the school, check it out. It might be similar in size or culture to a school that you're not able to visit that's on your list, so that might help you. The more you visit schools, the more you kind of start to understand what different types of schools are like. Even though they're all unique, there's a lot of crossover between them. So if you're going to plan on visiting schools, it's important to actually set up an official visit. So schedule the school visits with the school. I would recommend also asking about a dorm tour. So those are not always included in the campus visit. So make sure you can go see where you're staying if that's possible. There will typically be an admissions question and answer session as well. So you'll get to talk with an admissions officer and kind of ask questions specific to you or general to the school. And again, visiting schools is an excellent way to demonstrate interest. The other thing I'll say about scheduling visits is if you've got some schools on your list that you're visiting this summer for college visits and you really know you like the school, if you're interested in interviewing, a lot of smaller schools will actually do summer interviews. So they'll do informational admissions interviews over the summer, and that's an awesome way for you to get to talk to an admissions rep at the school, meet with them, get more information, and also demonstrate interest in a one-on-one kind of setting. So I would absolutely recommend that. All right, we're gonna move into college essays, probably one of the things you're thinking about the most this summer. So there's 2 college essays I wanna talk about today. Unfortunately, things are varied throughout college admissions. Each school wants a different thing, but these are 2 essays that you're probably gonna see time and time again at quite a few schools you apply to. So I wanna address you starting these during the summer. So one essay that you can absolutely start this summer is your personal narrative. When you kind of think about the quintessential college essay, this is typically what you're thinking of. It's a story about yourself, something that's letting your admissions reader know more about you, past just that test score, GPA, list of activities kind of piece of your application. So this is something that's really letting them into who you are as a person, what makes you tick, what are you passionate about, what's your story. So this is an important essay. The one key thing I can say on this is multiple drafts. So do not submit a first draft of this to the college. Don't even submit a second draft of this to the college. This is a really important essay. You want to make sure you're going through multiple drafts, that you're having a peer edit, like a trusted peer, not just a random peer, or a trusted family member or teacher, somebody that can really understand your writing style. So going through multiple edits of the essay is important. I would say the first draft you just edit on your own and then come back to it and have somebody else edit your second or third draft. The personal narrative can take a lot of different shapes and forms. One of the most common ways that you're going to respond to this personal narrative is through the Common App application prompts. So the Common App is a main application that lots of schools use, and they have 7 different prompts you can write on for this personal narrative. So that's a good place to start. Prompts are not going to always be the same for personal narratives across schools. However, as long as you've got a core story down, you can usually kind of adjust that to a lot of different prompts. So it's a good essay to start this summer, even if you're kind of unsure where you're applying. The Why College essay. So we talked about supplemental, I briefly mentioned supplemental essays a little bit earlier. These are the essays that are going to be school specific that get released after August 1st for many of the schools, not all. A very common supplemental essay prompt you're going to see is a why this college essay. So why do you want to go to X school? This is one that time and time again, I see students just struggling to write. And I think one of the biggest reasons why is they're not actually sure why they want to go to that school. They've put it on their list because it has a great reputation. They know somebody that went there, somebody recommended it. They saw it in a movie or online or something like that, but they actually don't really know much about the school. So these essays need to be extremely personalized. This is not an essay where you can reuse the essay, even though multiple colleges are going to ask you, why do you want to go to your college? And you're going to think, oh, well, I can just use the same essay and change out college names. Don't do that. It needs to be 100% unique school to school. So the best way to get started on that this summer is to actually start researching what are the concrete reasons why you want to attend that school. So what I would say is you don't want this response of like, X school has an amazing reputation or program or faculty. That's not what they're looking for. They already know that they have that, and they want to know specifically what about that draws you into the school. Like, what specific program are you looking at? Why does it make it different than another program of a similar reputation of another school? Another thing I see a lot that doesn't quite fit for these essays is the weather/location is really nice at this school, or it's close to home sort of thing. So same thing, there are probably 10 or 20 other schools that college could say, well, why don't you apply to this school, or why don't you apply to this school? It's also in this location and also has this type of weather. So that's what colleges are going to be asking, or that's what admissions readers are going to be asking themselves when they read this essay is this essay unique to our school? Does it really define why this student is a great fit at our school, why this school is a great fit for this student? So it needs to be personal, it needs to be researched. Okay. All right, let's go into another poll. So, what aspect of the college process do you feel takes the most time to complete? On average, it's not an exact science.
It looks pretty evenly split, Emily.
Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate the ones of you that clicked figuring out where to start, because I get that. It takes a while to do that as well. So college research, we talked a little bit about already. A lot of students research colleges throughout the year, so it's kind of hard to gauge how long that actually takes. But really, like, you start to narrow down your list, you kind of get the hang of it over the summer. Essays are going to take up quite a bit of your time over the summer, especially if you're applying to lots of schools that have lots of essays. The application is actually what I want to get into next. A lot of students fear the college application, and it really shouldn't be scary. So it's pretty simple. You know, the college application, a lot of times you're going to fill out less applications than schools you actually apply to. And the reason is you've got applications such as the Common App, such as the Coalition application, the UC application, Apply Texas, applications that have made it easy for you to apply to multiple schools on one application. Are you going to have to write essays for each school? Likely, yes. But the application itself is going to be very similar or even the same for each of those schools. So what I recommend in preparing for the application is, if you haven't already, start to put together a resume or a list of your activities and accomplishments from the past 3 years, which should be your high school years. So nothing middle school or before. Colleges want to see what's happened recently, so that would be high school. And that includes summers over high school. Yes, you can include the summer before your 9th grade year, if anyone is tempted to ask that question, if you did something important. So from the summer before 9th grade until now, what have you been doing? This can include clubs at school. This can include part-time jobs, volunteer work, summer programs that you've done, you know, independent projects like we talked about, internships, job shadowing, anything that has really exemplified you know, pursuing an interest, pursuing a passion outside of just your day-to-day classes at school. That's what they want to see. So put that together. What colleges are really looking for in the activity section is not just that they can check a box that you were in a club. They want to know what you did in that club. So if you have a leadership position, put that on your resume or list of activities. If you didn't have a leadership position, how did you step up in that organization? You know, were you second in command to somebody that you helped out with a project? Did you spearhead a fundraising campaign for a project that you were really passionate about, something like that? Even if you were a leader, that's also not just a checkbox of I was secretary. You need to explain, what was your role as secretary? What did you do? How did you improve the organization? So really writing out maybe like a sentence to 2 or a couple bullet points of what did you do in each of those activities? How did it make you grow? How did it make you learn? The second piece is, and the good thing about having that resume or list of activities is that when you get to the application, either this summer, which we'll talk about in a second, or the fall, you have that all in one place. So like I said, the application itself should not be scary. It's pretty simple, it's pretty easy. The thing that I see students tripping up on the most is the activities list. If you've ever filled out a job application, a summer program application, basically any type of application, it's going to be very similar to this, with the exception of the activities section. So they're going to ask you your name, your address, your parents' names, your siblings' names, what classes you're taking senior year, all different kinds of things like that. And then they'll go into the activity section and then the essays later on. So one thing you can do to get started is the Common App. If you know you're going to be applying to some schools on the Common Application, which you can actually go to the Common Application website, you can see a list of all their partner schools. So if you don't know, you can definitely check that out and see if your school is on the Common Application. If it is, or if you have multiple schools on there, which I'm sure most of you will, the Common Application actually introduced a couple years ago something that's called rollover. So right now, you could open up a Common Application account. You could start filling out the main application. So there's tabs at the top. This is what's actually called the Common App tab. So nothing that's school specific. You're not adding any colleges and filling out college specific stuff. You're just filling out the main tab that's asking you general information. That tab will actually roll over to next cycle. So right now, we are in the 2017-2018 application cycle still on the Common App. So your senior friends, their application cycle is still on the Common Application. That will not change until August 1st. Then it'll roll over to 2018-2019 cycle, and that'll be your cycle as an incoming senior. What you can do is fill it out now and actually roll it over to the fall. So if you're expecting to have a really busy senior fall, which most of you probably are, it's a great thing to start right now. You can actually start your application and get some stuff done. If you're not comfortable or a little bit nervous about starting it right now, that's fine. If you look at it and you're like, no, this is still a little bit scary, I don't want to actually put my stuff on there yet, you can always delete stuff off, FYI. But if you're not ready for that, you can still log in, create an account, kind of play around with it, look at it, see what kind of questions they're going to be asking you, and kind of just start to get a feel and a comfort level for the Common Application or an application in general. All right, so, and again, application should not be scary. It takes the least amount of time typically. It's pretty simple, so I don't want you to fear that piece of the admissions process. All right, couple final smaller topics I want to touch on. Finalized testing. So at this point in the game, probably a lot of you have already taken your first SAT or ACT. Some of you might be done with your SATs or ACTs, but I do want to touch on this for those of you that need to kind of wrap up your testing plan. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're looking at your colleges and doing research, building out your college list and getting organized, you'll want to look and see if any of your schools require or recommend subject tests. This is becoming less and less common. Not as many schools are requiring or recommending them. However, there are still some that do. So it's important for you to look it up. It should be very clear on their admissions page on their website if they require or recommend these. If they do, it's something that you need to take. Recommend means you should also take it. Unless there's a financial barrier or something like that, they really do prefer that you take them if they recommend the tests. What I will say is you'll want to know, do they require specific subject tests? So sometimes if you're majoring in engineering or computer science, they might recommend you take Math 2 and chemistry or physics. So make sure you're kind of getting organized again, making sure you know exactly what you need to take. Some schools recommend 2. There's one school out there that recommends 3. So make sure that you're kind of going back and forth and really looking, okay? Final SAT or ACT. So some of you might need to take another SAT or ACT. You might want to bump up your score before you turn in applications in the fall, and that's fine. We typically recommend taking the test no more than 2 to 3 times. 3 is kind of where we recommend the cutoff. So if you've already done that, typically scores start to plateau, and then it's time to move on essentially. But if you need to take a final test, there's definitely opportunity for you to take that in the summer or the fall. Summer test dates are going to fill up extremely quickly. They always do. There's a July ACT. It's not offered in California or New York, so if you're in 2 of those states, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to take it. If you need to take an extra ACT and you're in one of the other 48 states, go ahead and sign up like right now to make sure that you get a spot. Same thing with the August SAT. If you need to take an SAT before school starts, go ahead and sign up for that test now because it is an extremely popular test. Lots of locations were completely booked last year for the August SAT. There are also some more tests in the fall, and these really depend on when you're planning on submitting applications. That's why the organizational piece is really key this summer, so you know when all your deadlines are, what exactly you need, and then you can kind of piece together any final testing plans to say, oh, well, I'm in California California and I need one more ACT, so I'm going to have to take it in September because I'm applying to a school for November 1, that sort of thing. So kind of line up, make sure that you're taking all your tests before your deadline so that you can get your scores back and sent to the schools before the deadlines. Okay, one more poll. Actually, I'm sorry, second to last poll. Nope, this is the final poll. How much of a role will finances play in your final college decision?
It looks like most people are saying might play a role depending on the school.
Okay, awesome, cool. So finances typically play some type of role in admissions for most students, and the degree to which that happens depends on each family's situation. But I think it is important right now to start having that conversation with your parent or your guardians or whoever's going to be helping you navigate that process. So college can be really expensive. We all know that. We see articles all the time in media about tuition creeping up every single year, not backing down, unfortunately. So it's really important to be open and honest about that conversation. You know, one of the things that I've seen before is a student not thinking through this before applying to a school that they really got attached to and love, and then realizing when financial aid awards come in that it's completely out of the scope of what was financially reasonable for the family. And it was a little bit of a letdown. So I don't like to see that happen. I want everybody to be on the same page. If you're on the same page from the beginning and know what your budget is, how much money in loans you and your family are comfortable taking out, then you can all be upfront with each other and get started. It makes the process a little bit less stressful. So a couple things that I want to mention are some terms that you might see when you're looking at finances online, researching your colleges. So sticker price / cost of attendance versus net price. So we call it sticker shock sometimes. So when you see the price of a college online, you're like, whoa, that is crazy expensive to attend college. And that can kind of be a pushback. And so I've had some students and parents in the past say, we will not be applying to that school. It is too expensive. What sometimes they don't realize is that that's not always the price that you're going to pay. So the price that you see, which can be called sticker price or cost of attendance, is if you were to get zero financial aid from the school, merit or need-based, that's what you would pay. Typically what happens, especially at private schools, is that price actually comes way down for a lot of students. So when you submit your FAFSA, when you submit your application, if you're a great student that has great test scores and GPAs and it's a school that gives merit aid, they might give you some merit aid money based on that. If you submit your FAFSA and you have financial need, then they could give you some money for that as well. So one way, I know it's difficult to know what to expect, and there's no perfect way to kind of navigate, you know, I know I'll get this money if I apply to this school. One way that colleges and the federal government actually have tried to make this a little bit better for families is through net price calculators. So each college is required to have a net price calculator on their financial aid website. That's a place that I would start if this is a discussion that you're starting with your family. Some of them are a little bit better than others. Some of them are school specific, have been designed with the school scholarships in mind, and some of them are just the general government issued net price calculator. So that one's really only going to kind of dig into what federal aid you might get that's need based. But it's a good place to start to understand how much you might be paying for the school. Not an exact calculation by any stretch of the imagination, just kind of an average. The other thing that I talk with students a lot about and parents is scholarships. So centering around finances, a lot of students are like, well, I'll just apply for lots of scholarships, see as many as I can get, which is great. That's an awesome way for you to try to get some money for school. There's two main types of scholarships that I talk about with students: college and university specific, which would be school money that the school that you're applying to is giving you directly, and it can only be applied to that school. So that could be merit-based like we talked about, or that could be need-based. There's also third-party scholarships, which is where summer comes into play. So these are scholarships that are offered by, you know, companies, large companies throughout the country. They could be offered by nonprofits, foundations, organizations, local families. They can be offered by anybody, essentially. It's not tied to a specific school. These scholarships are available year-round, and there's thousands of them out there. What I would recommend is starting locally if you're looking at scholarships this summer, starting to call some local businesses, starting to reach out to the local Lions Club or Veterans Association, something like that, and start to ask if there's scholarships for students in your area, in your community. So then you can branch out from there. I will say, I know it's really tempting when you get online to scholarship websites to apply to the $20,000 ones because that's a lot of money, and if you get that, that's awesome. However, you have to know that the more money that they're giving in a scholarship, the more people are applying to that scholarship. So it doesn't mean not to apply, but give the little guys some love. The $1,000, $1,500 scholarships, they don't always have so many applicants, and anything you can do to bring down that applicant pool increases your odds of getting that scholarship if you're qualified. So that's absolutely something that I would recommend. All right, final thing is I want you guys, I know that we've gone through a lot of what you can do this summer, and I hope you're not feeling overwhelmed. However, I know students, and I know that that's probably happening to some of you right now. You're like, wow, I got a lot of stuff to do this summer. But it's super, super important for you to take some time to relax this summer. This is your last summer before you graduate. Hang out with family, hang out with friends. Take some time for yourself to do whatever you need to do, whether that's read or go to the movies with friends, skateboard around town, whatever it is you like to do. Don't jam pack your summer just with things for your college application. Take some time to relax and decompress. Senior year is going to be stressful in the fall. I'm just going to throw that out there for most of you. So it's important to kind of use this time to, like I said, decompress and relax a little bit. Take time for yourself. Minimize that burnout a little. So with that, I would like to open up the floor to questions. And also I want to just say good luck to you seniors going into senior year. I know this is a really exciting time. You guys are about to make some huge life decisions. And it's really, I know it's scary, but it should also be really fun and really exciting. So I'm excited for you guys. So yeah, Lindsay, I'd love to open up the floor for discussion.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so you guys can go ahead and put some questions in the questions box in your menu. And I saw a few come through. So I'll send those in a second. Quickly, I'm just going to launch one last poll. Emily, I snuck one in on you. And just remind you guys that we do have free college admissions consultation. So if you're interested, please respond and we'll have someone reach out to you. And then we'll go ahead and get to the questions. So I'll leave this up for 5 more seconds so everyone gets a chance to respond. And okay. Let's see. The first question we have is, can your college essay be something not related to your major?
Absolutely. It's actually, I would probably recommend it that way, especially if something related to your major isn't coming to your mind immediately. There are sometimes some supplemental essays that will ask you, why do you want to major in this specific major? Why do you want to attend this specific, business college within the university? Those you do need to address the prompt and talk about your major choice and why you want that. However, your personal statement it's really to let your reader into your life. So think about going to coffee with an old friend or meeting up with some, relatives you haven't seen in a while at a family reunion. What would you tell them to let them in to know how you've been feeling lately, what you've been doing? So that's how the college admissions readers want to feel. They want to feel like they're getting to know you, because they read, to be honest, they're reading thousands and thousands of applications. And when you're reading that many applications, it's inherent that there's going to be a lot of similarity. There's going to be a lot of students with the same test scores, the same GPA, the same activities that are, a lot of schools have the same clubs. So this is a way to differentiate yourself, to really make yourself a human being to them and not just, a list of numbers and activities.
Great. Another question, I created a club during middle school. Could I put this on my college application?
Yeah, I've encountered that a couple times. This is a club that you continued into high school, or you've continued kind of a tangent of it into high school. Say you started, a Red Cross club in high school, and then you continued that into high school, or you did something similar in high school that, married those two together. That's okay. But I would really talk about your time in high school. They're going to be, even if you put that you started the club earlier than high school, they're not going to be too focused on that. One thing that I have a lot of students that might have, been playing the piano since they were 9. So they'll put that, they still play the piano actively. So they'll put that on their application. That's something that they're really involved in. But in the description, they might say began piano at age 9 or something like that. That's okay. If it was just in middle school, you should leave it off.
Okay. Can you apply to more than one college by early decision?
You cannot apply to more than one college early decision. So if you apply early decision, which is a binding agreement, you, your parent, and your counselor are all going to sign an agreement that says that's the only early decision school you're applying to. There are other school admissions deadlines that are called early action, and you want to be really careful because there's also a subset to that called restrictive early action or single choice early action, which limits you a little bit more. But if it's purely just early action, at a lot of those, you can apply to more than one early action school. So if you're applying to 2 schools with a pure early action deadline, that's fine. You just want to be really careful reading the language on the school's website. But early decision typically is always a binding agreement. You won't be able to apply to 2 of those programs.
Okay. How should I dress for a college interview?
That's a great question. So depends on time of year. It also depends on location. So you don't need to go too formal. If you are a male, I would recommend, some nice slacks, a button-down shirt. You don't need to go in a suit or anything. Obviously, if it's cold, you could wear a suit jacket. If you're a female, either some nice slacks again, a skirt or dress of reasonable length. You're not sure where you're going to be sitting. There's a lot of offices that have couches. So if you're going to be sitting on a lower couch, you want to make sure that your skirt or dress is an appropriate length, that it's not riding up. Girls, you also want to be really cognizant of, straps on your dress or your shirt. So if it's like a skinny strap or something like that, make sure you wear like a blazer or cardigan over it. Just be conservative. You don't need to dress super fancy. That's not necessary. You don't need to go in business attire. But I would, wear something that you might go to lunch with your grandma in or something like that. So dress appropriately. No, you don't need to wear heels either, unless you just want to.
Okay. If you've had some significant life stressors that impacted your grades, should you tell the college or will it be counted against you?
Yeah, this is a good question. And it's going to be a little bit hard to answer without kind of specifics. This is something that I would really like to talk to a student about in a program. However, generally, I will say if there's a significant dip in your grades, colleges are going to notice that. And I'm talking significant, not just like you accidentally dropped to a C one semester in one class. This is like you plummeted in most of your classes 1 year or 1 semester. So if that's the case, the colleges are absolutely going to take notice, and it is going to raise a red flag to them. So there's going to need to be some type of explanation, and the way that explanation gets relayed to the school, whether that's in your application, in a letter from your counselor, in an essay, something like that, is really going to be dependent on the specific situation.
Okay. If a college does not require a recommendation letter, should you still send one?
I would not. There are some colleges that have optional letters of recommendation. And if that's the case and you feel really strongly that somebody wrote you a great letter, yes, go ahead and send it. If a school is saying we do not, so the UCs are a great example. They ask for them sometimes later on, but in the beginning they specifically say, we do not want recommendation letters. This is the University of California system. Do not send those to that school. That basically comes back to the getting organized and reading instructions. You want to make sure you're following the instructions for the application.
Got it. How important is it to start a dialogue with the local admissions reps that you might meet at a local college fair or something like that?
Yeah, I think it can be very important. Not every school tracks demonstrated interest like we talked about before. Typically, a lot of smaller schools will. Larger, really popular or larger state schools usually don't have the bandwidth to track a ton of demonstrated interest. However, as a previous college counselor, I did work closely with my local admissions reps for state schools in my area. And that did affect quite a few of my students' decisions. When you really get to know the admissions rep and they really get to know you, they have a vested interest in you. So if you end up making it to kind of like the floor of the committee and people are saying, we're not sure on the student, that person can step up in defense of you and say no, I know this student. They've come to every session that I've been in. This is what they're going through in school right now. This is what they're working on. So they can really be an advocate on your behalf if you have a positive relationship with them.
Okay. We've got a question. Should we hire a professional college counselor, or can the kids manage it all on their own?
It really depends on the specific student and the parent. What I would recommend is if it's something that you think you might be interested in, go ahead and set up a consultation with us because we can kind of run you through what we offer, or set up a consultation with somebody else local if that's what you're needing. So set up a consultation, feel it out. Not every student needs one. That's totally the case, but some students really benefit from it, and some families really benefit from it. They really like to, you know, if a family or a parent feels overwhelmed with the process, they're like, I don't know, I did this 20 years ago, or I didn't go to school in America, or whatever. This can really be it can be useful to have that person to reach out to with questions and kind of guide your student along the way.
What types of questions should you be asking during the college tour?
Great question. So I would do your research before the tour. I mean, it's okay if you do, don't feel bad, but you don't want to ask a question like, when's your deadline, when it's obviously posted on their website. I would think of questions that are more anecdotal. So typically when you're going on a tour, you might get to talk to an admissions officer. You're probably also going to be given the tour by a current student that works in the admissions office. So talk to them a little bit about their experiences. How did they feel their freshman year? What recommendations would they give to an incoming freshman? If you're specifically worried about the food on campus or the dorm situation or something like that, talk to them about that. That's a good opportunity for you to ask some more personal questions that you can't just research online.
Okay. If your GPA or test scores are lower than the college's median scores, is it still possible to get in because of maybe extracurricular activities?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't discount yourself. Just because you've got something that's outside of the realm doesn't mean that it's impossible to get into a school. I would say it does mean it's probably going to be more of a reach school for you. And if you're working with a counselor either at your school or independently, they should be able to kind of give you some idea of where you fall within that. So that might be something to talk to somebody about. But without a whole profile of a student, it's a little bit difficult for me to tell. But again, don't discount yourself. If you really love a school and it's right out of range, definitely I think it's worth being a reach school.
Okay, we'll do a few more. Is there a certain style of writing colleges want to see when you submit a personal essay?
Yes, they want to see personal narrative style writing. So forget the formality that you've learned in English class. Forget the 5 paragraphs kind of structure. Like, this is a personal essay. This is an essay that uses the word I, that relates to you, like you personally. You never want to push your ideas in the essay on somebody else. So when I read an essay that's like, people think this or you think this, I read that as like, I don't know if I think that. It should be coming from you, the student, like, I think XYZ. Most personal narratives and most personal essays, you do want to have it in an essay structure. So it doesn't need to be 5 paragraphs. It doesn't need to have a robust intro, a robust conclusion. Like, you can have some freedom and flexibility there. But I do typically say avoid kind of what we call like gimmicky essays. Like, some students want to write poems and things like that. They really do want to read like a personal narrative about you. That's what they want to read.
Okay. Emily, do you know the difference between need blind versus need aware?
Yes. So this is a large discussion and does take a lot of research. So need blind schools do not take the need for financial aid into their admissions process. So when you're applying for colleges, a lot of times on the admissions application, the school will ask you, are you planning to apply for financial aid? It is very tempting to always click yes on that. And this is why I think the conversation regarding finances early is really important. You want to research and see, are these schools need blind or need aware? If they're need blind, click away. The answer to that question will have absolutely no bearing on your admissions decision. If the school is need aware, what that means is that when it comes down to kind of the last maybe 5% or so of applicants, like it's not all the applicants that have this happen to them, but when they're kind of, admitting the last few applicants, what they're going to do is see, they might say our financial aid pool it's drained. Like, we don't have any more money to give at this point. So if they're admitting an applicant if they're looking at an applicant that says, yes, I need financial aid, and they don't have any financial aid to give, that could play a part into that student's admissions decision. They could then say, well, we're not going to admit the student because we know they need money. They're saying they need money. We don't have any money to give them. So we would rather give admission to this other student who we know can come to our school because they have not said they need money. And that's something that it doesn't happen. If it's a need-aware school, it doesn't mean it happens to every student that's applying there. So I don't want you to think that. But it is absolutely something to take into consideration when you're applying to those schools. If you don't really need it, it'd just be nice at those need-aware schools and you're kind of on the cusp anyways, I might recommend not checking that box.
Okay. For top universities, what's the single thing that colleges are looking at the most in your application?
Yeah, for all universities, the number one thing they're going to look for is they're going to look at your transcript, not just your GPA. They're going to look at what classes did you actually take? Did you challenge yourself within the context of your high school? So if your high school only offers 5 AP classes, did you max out? Did you take all 5 of those APs? If your school offers an IB curriculum, are you getting an IB diploma? So they're going to look at how you challenged yourself within the context of your high school, and they're also going to look at your grades in those classes. So were you able to make A's in AP classes, or were you just making A's in standard level classes? So that's going to be the most important.
Would you recommend taking a summer class at a school you really want to get into?
So typically that's not going to have a huge weight or bearing on the admissions at that school. It can be a great way for you to get to know a little bit more about the school, feel how it is to live on campus, learn. It also can help you sometimes in your why that college essay, because you get to know the school a little bit better being on it for, anywhere between 2 and 8 weeks sometimes. But it's not actually going to play directly into your admissions decision. Typically that information is not shared between the program and the admissions readers a lot of time, unless there's something that they really need to note, like if there was a disciplinary action or something like that. So there are some programs that actually don't do that. I know my students have participated in a couple programs in the past where they actually do get the information that the student is in that program, but it typically is not going to make or break your application if you did a program at that school or not.
Okay. Should you waive the right to see your recommendation letter?
Yes, you should. So if you waive the right to see your letter of recommendation, it's going to hold more value to the school. So if you do not waive your right, what a lot of colleges are going to think is that you helped that teacher write that letter, or you approved that letter could go through beforehand, and then they submitted it. So it seems a little more coerced, not as genuine. You should only be asking teachers for letters of recommendation that you genuinely trust and have great relationships with. You should not be asking a teacher that you're, second guessing and saying, is this teacher going to write something bad about me? So only ask teachers that you trust, you have good relationships with, and then it shouldn't be a problem to waive your rights.
Great. What would you say the number one mistake students make when applying to school?
Ooh, that's a hard question. Wow. I mean, there's lots of little mistakes. I would say one of the biggest mistakes is not being genuine to themselves in a lot of different regards, whether that's in their essays, not being genuine in their essays, whether that's applying to schools that somebody else wants them to apply to that they don't really want to apply to, majoring in something that they feel, somebody else wants or will make a lot of money, but that they're not really interested in. So I think being true to yourself as a student, going through this process and really saying this is where I'm going to spend the next 4 years of my life. I need to be really happy in what I'm doing so that I succeed there, I think is really important.
Great. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
We got through most of the questions. There are a few that are very specific, and I want to invite you all to set up a consultation with us. If you answer the poll question, yes, please, then we'll be reaching out. Otherwise, feel free to email questions@review.com and say that you're interested in that, and then we can get you set up with someone to walk you through a little bit more about our services in your specific situations. Thank you all for joining us. As I mentioned before, these sessions are recorded, so if you've got a friend or a family member who you think would find this valuable, these will be posted online within the week. You can go to princetonreview.com/webinars. You can see all of our webinar archives. Again, thank you for joining. You can email us at questions@review.com with any admissions questions, and we'll try and get you an answer, or at least get you a consultation with someone who can.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Have a great evening.